The changes happening in Beyoncé's voice are part of a beautiful and inevitable journey. This journey factors in the ups and downs of her life to yield a sound. Beyoncé's skill as a singer means that she is able to take the raw materials of wherever her voice is at the time and stretch them to the limits of their development, yielding a highly skilled use of this sound. But what if Beyoncé was given a new sound? A voice that blossoms in different parts of the keyboard, has different strengths and weaknesses, and takes a completely new approach in order to activate its fullest potential. Beyoncé's voice is changing, and it's changing her music. I'm going to tell you how in this video. This is O'Neal Gerald. So Beyoncé's voice is definitely changing, but what does that mean for her music? It means exactly what we've been getting, music that is more suitable for Beyoncé to perform live. But before I take off on the concept of protective songwriting and performance, let's take some more time to confirm the validity of the claim that Beyoncé's voice is changing. A disclaimer. When I talk about changes in the voice, I'm not exclusively talking about changes in range, although that's included. I'm mostly talking about changes in the timbre and tessitura of her voice. That is, how her voice is behaving differently across the keyboard. This is where the juice of the information is, and the beauty too. When we study this evolution in a singer, we paint an elaborate, exciting picture that can only be completed as a singer gets older and makes more music. So let's paint that picture, shall we? Get Me Bodied, a song that Beyoncé has consistently performed live since its inception in 2006 on B-Day. Save the Formation Tour. Now to test our theory, let's find a part of the song that Beyoncé has sung like the record each time. This will help us to tell the differences. Ah yes, ain't no shame cause I got a good mind. Beyoncé's early belting has a history of having slightly more of a nasal concentration, yielding a brightness to the sound. This was her technical tendency at the beginning of her career. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but if we know what her technical tendencies are, we can determine when she is and when she isn't in control, and also when changes are happening. If we see a fluctuation in the brightness of the sound, we can start to see that something's going on. Now in this clip, when she grabs the F5 on Shame, she takes out a little bit of the nasal resonance, and therefore the brightness of the sound. Now for the I Am tour, we have a slightly less concentrated balance of nasal resonance. Her instrument was very open, and the resonance of the climb up matched the climax and the way down in terms of brightness. Now this isn't necessarily a change in the makeup of her voice, but a change in the technique she's using to sing. Use versus build. The changes I'm talking about are deeper than just use. Now when I first listened deeply to the Miss Carter tour edition of Get Me Bodied, I thought I was hearing a slight artifact of a growl at the beginning of Shame. This made me wonder if Beyoncé was slightly uncomfortable when hitting the note. After some more listening, the vocals sounded pretty clean, but what I thought I was hearing originally pointed me to something else that contributed to my original hypothesis of her being uncomfortable. Pitch. From the word shame to the word I, Beyoncé falls slightly under pitch. The fact that her pitch slipped a bit under also confirms to me something is being factored into her navigation of that F5. That something could be a brief loss of mental focus or breath support, but it could also be a change in her voice. Another thing to note is the new robustness and fullness that has now become a part of her tone. That line is way more powerful than 2007. Now, she could have been hoarse, tired in that point of the set, or just had a genuine slip-up. But considering the changes that happened to her voice through to Homecoming, this clip may just be representative of changes having already begun in her voice. Another disclaimer. To find these details, we have to do an extreme amount of nitpicking. These are all stellar vocals, but we are going this deep simply to find the changes in the way that Beyonce navigates a song written for her 2006 voice in 2014. Homecoming's take of Get Me Bodied presents an even more robust and full tone as she punches the climax of that line. Also, the run on Mind is triggered by a very powerful vocal onset that brings out the new, greater fluidity to her runs. I speculate that the way her runs are landing harder now are due to a very slight new disposition to using her chest register, packing a little bit more punch in the way that she sings through her middle. Now, Get Me Bodied was actually brought down by one semitone. So it's important to know that whatever challenges Beyonce might have encountered in this performance, they would probably be increased by raising it back to the original key. But even in the adjusted key, Beyonce ends up slightly under pitch on the way up to and on the now E5. This again, along with the adjusted key, sends me the message that she's needed to navigate her belts in a new way that she wasn't all the way used to at the time of this recording. And this new navigation is an indication of changes that are happening in her voice. Now, the evolution of the voice is also not linear. Imagine an alto saxophone player being given a tenor saxophone to play all of his repertoire on. The tenor is much heavier and fuller in tone than the alto, and this extra weight requires the player to adjust airflow and fingering in order to access some of the same notes of the alto. These changes have to be interpreted and learned by the alto player so that they can become a tenor player. That's essentially what's happened in Beyonce's voice. She's been given some changes in her instrument that have made her tone broader, fuller. Those changes have narrowed her access to her higher notes into a small window of vocal coordination. Now, if you give the alto saxophonist some time, they will eventually pick up on the nuances and be able to pull on the tenor saxophone's strengths and weaknesses to make the most of the use of this sound. And so will Beyonce with this new sound she's working with. And a part of what goes into pulling out the strengths and weaknesses of her new sound is found in songwriting. And that's what we'll be talking about in part 3 of Beyonce's Voices Changing. If you're enjoying this content, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel because this is the place where we think deeply to create art that changes the world. I'm O'Neal Gerald, and I'll see you in another video. Bye, everyone.